One Wellness Week Live. What's up, everybody? This is Anthony the DJ, and I got a special guest today, boy. This one is one for the books, no pun intended. But I have with me Detective Ralph Friedman, NYPD's most decorated detective. And boy, oh boy, this book is a must-read. And I don't want to say former detective, once a cop, always a cop. But so, Detective Friedman, thank you for coming on Wellness Week. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, come on. Listen, now for the people who don't know you, just a real quick synopsis of who you are. And yeah, so please take it away.
Well, I'm a retired NYPD detective. I came on as a police trainee in 1968. Wow. In 1970, February, I was appointed a patrolman. I worked about a year in uniform. Then I went into plain clothes, which is called anti-crime work.
Right.
And then I became a detective at 4 years after that. Then I was promoted again to second grade detective. And my career ended August 1st of 1983 in a car accident on duty.
Okay.
We were racing to assist another patrolman who
Right.
needed help. And we were T-boned by a police car, ironically. But all the stuff I did on the job, ironically, I got hurt by the police.
Yeah. Wow. And then you know, real quick for the viewers, actually, ironically, I mean, this podcast is not about your book, but the book I had gotten this book just serendipitously, and I was looking for something to read. I'm in Starbucks reading this book. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to get this book for the holidays. And again, no one's paying me to say it. But as I'm reading through this book, I'm like, I got to get a hold of this guy. I got to interview you. And how it kind of fits into my show, Wellness Week, is you mentioned in the book how you valued exercise and taking care of yourself. And I think, being in a physical job like a police officer, it kind of goes hand in hand, being fit at least, or trying. In your case, you were fit. And I said, well, this would be a great opportunity to talk about health, wellness, mental health for police officers. But this book right here, folks, get this book. I promise you, it reads like fiction, but it's not. It's OMG, wow, page turner. So anyways, and thank you for your service, because I grew up in the New York City area, and I still, I grew up in Palisades Park, New Jersey, Fort Lee right there over the bridge. So let me ask you, Detective, what made you want to get into police work? Like what drew you to that as a youngster?
Well, I was never drawn to police work.
No.
Actually, a couple of friends. I was moving furniture.
Right.
When I got out of high school, I didn't want to go to college because I wanted to go out and earn my own way.
Right.
So I was working for Neptune Worldwide Movers, and I had a very good paying job at the time. But a couple of friends I was out with on a Friday night told me, I said, "What are you doing tomorrow?" They said, "They're taking the police test," because back in those years it was a walk-in.
Right.
And it was in a local high school that I graduated from, Clinton High School.
Okay.
And I said, well, knock on my door. If I wake up, I'll go with you. And I never thought of becoming a police officer. Nobody in my family or friends were police officers.
Right.
But once I took the test, I thought it could be a great career without college, because moving furniture, I'd be moving the same refrigerator or a dresser 20 years later.
Right.
So then I got a little excited about it, and they called me pretty fast. I was called like in a few months, but I was too young. Okay. So I became a police trainee for exactly 2 years working indoors. And then February of 70, I got appointed patrolman and assigned to the 41st Precinct, which was in the South Bronx.
That's Fort Apache.
That's Fort Apache, infamous or famous, whichever.
Yeah.
But I've worked out. I started working out when I was age 12.
Okay.
And I was always into the physical fitness. So when I got into moving the furniture, that was a plus also.
Right.
But going into police work, it is a physical job, because especially once I got into plain clothes, I was in very active units. And you wound up, our job basically, which I did after I was a detective also, even though I investigated all kinds of cases, I started to specialize in robberies and guns. So you're running into armed perpetrators and stuff, and it becomes a physical job, because a lot of times you're wrestling or fighting with a perpetrator.
Right.
So the working out and staying in shape, which I still do today,
Right.
Uh, it was definitely a plus.
Right.
And in the accident that I mentioned that ended my career, being in such good shape saved my life. And not only that, I had 23 broken bones. I
Whoa.
broke my pelvic, left, right, upper, and lower, and I
Whoa.
shattered my hip.
Wow.
And with all that, I didn't get one stitch and I didn't get an operation. I
Whoa.
stayed in traction for 3 months, where the only thing they were concerned with was the hip. If one piece of hip fell into the socket, they were going to give me a new hip.
Right.
But the muscle acted as a uh,
Brace.
like a cushion, like a bulletproof vest would do.
Right.
Everything broke, but nothing moved because
Right.
the muscle, my body shielded it, and that saved my life, and I didn't need surgery.
Wow. Wow. And this goes back to this health and wellness of how important it is, especially as we age. Weight training, resistance training is so important for that reason, right? Like you said,
But
muscles.
besides being a police officer, I think physical fitness for any job is important. You only have one body,
Correct.
and
Yeah.
taking care of it should be paramount.
Well, 100%. And we're going to jump around a little bit here, but I wanted to ask you, so do you think the cops of the 70s and 80s were in better shape, generally speaking, than the cops of today? Like, what do you
I
think?
say absolutely,
Yeah.
because working out was a big thing in the 60s and 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Even though physical fitness is big today too, but I think more people were in the gym lifting heavy weights and stuff like that.
Right.
And you also had coming on the job back then were a lot of veterans,
Right.
and they were in shape, and
Right.
they did all kinds of exercises and
Right.
stuff in services,
Right.
which I thank them for their services all the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But besides that, most of them are in good shape, and they're
Right.
young guys, and they
Right.
get into shape, and they're coming on all different police departments. So, and back then the standards were a little higher.
Right.
Today they lower a lot of the standards. Like to
Right.
give you an example, I know they cut the run down
Right.
because they did that, and they also cut out, I think, contact boxing. Now,
Right.
when we were on the job and going through the academy, if you didn't do, when you had contact fighting, if you didn't do it or held back, right, you'd have to fight the instructor, and you didn't
Wow.
want that.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So I think I always say I think the cops from yesterday, back in the 70s, were much tougher, but
Right.
today's cops are much smarter. They
Right.
use it as a stepping stone, and they're 20 years and they're out. They
Right.
used to tease us, oh, you're just a rookie for the first 20 years.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
guy
Yeah.
stayed on for 35, 40 years. It was their
Wow.
life.
Yeah.
Today, especially under the conditions today, guys get out right away. It's 20 years. They're usually out in their low 40s,
Right.
and they have a whole lifetime ahead of them and do another career.
Right. Yeah. No. Well said. Yeah. Right. Now let me ask you: did bulletproof vests? I mean, I know the technology existed, before the '70s, but in the '70s, did cops, generally speaking, wear bulletproof vests, or kind of hit and miss? No. No pun intended.
No, they didn't wear bulletproof vests. I was in a unit that we went out and bought our own vests.
Right.
I was in an anti-crime unit in the 4-1, and we bought 20 vests and 20 shotguns. But the vest was so heavy
Yeah. Yeah.
that it's nothing like today's technology. You
Right.
wear a vest, and your whole body is just as flexible as if you didn't have it. We
Right.
wore these vests if you tried to wear them. What we really did was keep them in the trunk, and if we were going to hit an apartment or something with the when we used to go after the BLA, was the
Right.
Black Liberation Army,
Right.
and they were heavily armed. So
Right.
if you knew you were hitting their locations, we'd throw it on. But
Right.
they're not the kind of vest that you could have worn in the car and
Right.
jumping out, tossing people, getting back in the car.
Yeah.
They were so thick. They were antiquated as compared to today's stuff.
Oh.
Today's technology is 10 times lighter, maybe
Yeah.
20 times lighter, and more resistant.
Right. And I think, and you probably could speak to this, and I know things aren't great in Manhattan and New York City area today, but I think they were probably worse in the '70s, right?
They were worse in a different kind of way. Crime was very bad, but you had the backing of the public. You
Right.
had the backing of your bosses and the backing of the politicians.
Right. Right. Right.
Today, they even have there's a law out that prevents them from using any kind of hold
Right.
that would stop airflow or blood flow.
Right. Right.
And you're not allowed to use chokeholds. And these laws were made by people who were never, ever in a fight.
Yeah.
Because when you're fighting for your life, anything goes.
Well, Detective, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So it's very hard, and they don't want you putting your hands on people the way we did back then. Not that we were doing anything wrong, but that's how we were taught.
Understood. Different time, different era. And
exactly.
And as I'm reading this book, I'm saying to myself, especially at the 4-1, I mean, geez, you guys, it really was hand-to-hand, life and death battle. No joke.
Every day, street cops were very physical back then, and you had to be, because violent criminals only understand violence.
Right. 100%.
And people don't want, you're taking away the most prized possession someone has, their freedom.
Right. And reading the book, I mean, like I'm on one of the chapters I just got done talking about, well, I mean, yeah, so many stories in this book about you were, arresting evil people, really bad people, and they were not going to capitulate. Like, they weren't going to be like, right. You couldn't say, hey, stop, or else you stop again. The men that you were arresting, they were trying to kill you and anybody in their way. So, like, what are you supposed to do there? It's like you had to get physical. It is life and death. And to your point, people that write these laws, they probably have never been in a slap fight. Never mind.
Never.
Right. And so, so going back to the fitness and stuff. Now, were you ever? Maybe I didn't catch this in the book, but were you into any kind of? You mentioned boxing. Were you ever into like martial arts or anything, or like?
Well, I didn't take boxing, only in the academy.
Okay.
They give you a course, on tactics, so boxing, how to use a nightstick, how to apply handcuffs. On my own, I took a little karate and judo, but I never excelled in it. I didn't really pursue it, but I tried a little of everything.
Right. Okay.
Because I was into physical fitness, the gym, bodybuilding, and I did a little of that each.
Right. Okay. And so let's talk about also the other thing that I guess even today, unfortunately, nobody really wants to talk about, the public and especially cops, and that is mental health. I think suicide rates are like, the highest among basically military and law enforcement. And that's sad because our men and women in blue and our soldiers deserve better. And I know from reading your book, it seemed like, when you had a hard day in the NYPD or your colleagues did, you kind of just, shut up and keep moving. And you touched on it in the book, a couple of your colleagues that really suffered because they didn't get the help they needed and they wound up either in bad situations or taking their own lives. I mean, what was it like back then? I mean, did the police officers, you guys ever talk about your problems, or you kind of just shut up? And like you mentioned, it was kind of like shut up, but I mean,
it was shut up. You were taught first to overcome any kind of resistance, when you're fighting, or if you had to take a life in the line of duty, but you would be ostracized if you complained, or it would show a sign of weakness, and you couldn't show that back then. Right. Today, it's encouraged to come forward that, no problem's that big to take your life. Anything can be fixed. But they didn't cater to that back then, where today there is help.
Right.
I think soldiers are much worse.
Oh,
I think they're at 22 a day.
Yeah, it's insane. And my father's
insane number.
Yeah, it's really insane.
People see when you're in the service, if you're in combat zone, or if you're a police officer in the streets of major cities and stuff, you see the underbelly. You see things that keep you up at night. You see things that are going to bother you. And if you're not mentally strong enough, some people it bothers. I mean, I've seen things that some people could not handle.
Listen, in your book,
when people are home sleeping in their beds and police are out on the street, what they see in the daytime, they see cops getting a slice of pizza. They see cops getting a coffee or rapping to a girl. But what we see at night is another story.
Right.
Even in the day, I mean, it's anytime.
Right.
But you go to people's houses that committed suicide. You see people that got killed. You see guts hanging out. You see terrible things. You don't believe what humans could do to other humans. The disregard for human life.
Right. Yeah. And to your point about that, so all right. So I'm going to say something, and you tell me what you think. I think in today's police departments across America, I don't think it should be if you have a mental or a uh, psychological issue, you should opt in. I think it should be the other way. I think from the chief down to the meter maid, everybody twice a year should go to the psychologist or therapist, and it should be opt out, not opt in. This way, you don't look like an oddball. Because I think when you nowadays, it's I have friends and family that are in policing, and it's like if it's there for you, but you have to choose to opt into therapy. Most people, I think, aren't going to do that because again, they still don't want to look weak. But what if it was opt out, where it was mandatory? All cops have to go to therapy twice a year. What do you think of that?
I think you'd lose 90% of the police force. No,
really?
No, guy. First of all, that would be subject, to the psychiatrist, and you could lose a lot of officers, and maybe good officers. But I don't think that would be good. I think they should seek help.
Okay.
I don't think it should be
opt in, not opt out. Yeah.
See, like when I came on, when you come on now, which we didn't have back then, you got to pass a psychological test.
Back then,
we didn't even have that.
Oh, you didn't have it back then, right?
Oh no, those kind of things were unheard of back then. We're talking like more than 50 years ago.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to believe, but that's a lot. I don't know where the time went.
Yeah.
Yeah. I came on in '68 and appointed a patrolman in '70. That was 54 years ago, 56 years ago.
Wow.
I mean, any sign of weakness, they wouldn't take you.
Right.
We were taught you got to be strong.
Yeah.
You got to accept this stuff. And any sign of it was a weakness, and they would put you out.
Yeah.
But today they say it won't affect your record if you came forward, but it probably would.
Right.
Because it's going to be on your record. And then if something happened later on, even if you got help, the police department would be subject, whatever police department it is, would be subject to litigation.
Right. Well,
it's got to hamper your career. I don't see how if you sought help for something psychological, how they would they say they let you proceed on, but I don't see it.
Yeah. They're gonna cover their butts or write laws.
Exactly.
Litigation.
Especially today with litigation.
Yeah. Well, thank God, they have 988, which is anonymous, that people can get help. And I know that there's other places like you also have online therapy through like betterhelp.com, which is private. It's not anonymous, but like you said, bless you. You had, I lost a friend who was in federal law enforcement to suicide. And it's just heartbreaking. It's like, man, and I know that a lot of people who have. And
I know I had two close friends that committed suicide. One was a guy who came on the job at the same time I did, and he saw things in the street and couldn't handle it. Yeah. And no one knew, though. You couldn't tell he couldn't handle it. These people have demons that we don't see.
Right.
And, he was a good-looking guy, single, making money. He was a cop, and he had girlfriends, and you would never think it would happen.
Right.
And then another friend of mine, just maybe 4 years ago, he was a captain, and he was one of the guys that were at 9/11 immediately. Spent a lot of time there, and he got sick, and he had a lot of pain, and they couldn't get rid of it. And he told me he was going to commit suicide for over a year, but he said, if you send someone to my house or anything, that he would do it immediately. So he didn't do it for like a year. And then he told me all during this year, he used to tell me, Ralph, if I commit suicide, just please tell everybody that I wasn't crazy and I wasn't depressed. I was just putting myself down like you would do a dog that's in pain.
Right,
he said, and he was a very smart guy, college, a lot of degrees. He was a multimillionaire. He was a captain. He had businesses. And he was single. He was dating beautiful women. He had everything in the world you could possibly have going. And, he had this pain from 9/11, and it affected him that bad that he put himself down.
Wow. Yeah. No. And, to tie into that too, it's interesting going back to the fitness. I think you probably would agree, generally speaking, well, it's not even generally speaking. If you're physically fit, more than likely that's going to make you stronger mentally, because we do know there's a connection.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% on that.
And by the way, so I'm always impressed, and kudos to the state troopers, because every year, if you're a state trooper, you have to pass a physical, and that's not how it is with local police. And I think that's a disservice to our local cops, because if you're not going to go to therapy, having that physical standard that you have to pass every year, at least, it gives you impetus to want to take care of yourself physically, which will also translate to mental health, because it's all tied together. But yeah, I mean, the fact that
I agree with you.
Yeah,
but, most cops are pretty young anyway. So
generally speaking,
right. They usually, most cops come on in their low 20s.
Right.
So at the end of their career, they're in their low 40s.
Right.
So that's, well, I guess because I'm so old now, I think that's super young.
Oh,
I remember when I thought 30 was very old.
Right.
60 is very young.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be 76 in another month.
Really? God bless, man. You look younger than me. I don't know what's going on. I mean, and so what do you do nowadays? What's your workout like now? What's your nutrition regimen like now? What workout? What do you do every day, every other day?
Well, I always start off my day with sit-ups on a Roman decline bench, because my hip, so there's a muscle that goes across the hip, and that when I do that, it warms me up and I can walk around good. Right. So I always start off with 1,000 sit-ups.
Whoa!
But I do it in sets of 200.
Yeah.
So I do 5 sets of 200.
Wow.
That gets me going. And I also do side-to-side bends. So it's about a half hour to start my day.
Wow.
And at the end of the day, I start working out around midnight. I'll usually do about at least 1 hour or more. I work out at home. So I have a home gym.
Yeah.
And I have a large screen TV in there. So if I get a good movie, I work out better. I'm not I used to live in gyms.
Yeah.
But the last 25 years, I like working out at home.
All right. That's cool.
And I have a full gym.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing, man. I mean, not to gas you up, but I mean, most 20-year-olds cannot do what you just said.
Well, I don't lift very heavy now. I used to lift heavy when I was a kid. Right now, I train light.
Right, I hear you.
Most of the time, I'm probably my own worst enemy. I got more injuries to myself.
Yeah.
From working out. But I'm so mentally trained to work out.
Yeah.
And when I have a bad shoulder, which I have now, I'll still go down tonight and work out. And I'll be in pain, and I take it.
Yeah, but you know what?
I have to work out for my mental.
Listen, I've learned that as I've gotten older, exercise is the elixir for your mind. It really is. And
absolutely.
There was a study out just recently, I think it was from the Journal of American Medicine, saying that exercise is 2 times more potent than any antidepressant medication you can take. That's a scientific fact. People can look it up. I was blown away that exercise is that powerful.
Exercise, gets the blood flowing. That's important. And it stimulates the whole body.
Yeah.
You get pumped up. That's the blood flowing everywhere.
No, you're right. Now, let me ask you, do you have a particular dietary regimen or no? Yes?
Well, not really, but I don't eat junk food.
Okay.
I never in my life had coffee, tea, soda. I never had alcohol. I never smoked. Wow. I don't do drugs.
Okay.
I wouldn't go to McDonald's and eat. I don't eat candy, or I like a little pie once in a while, but I never eat cake, cookies, nothing like that.
Okay.
I try to stay away from the sweets all my life.
And you said you never smoked, right?
Never smoked, never drank.
Yeah. And I'm like you. I never drank. I never been drunk. I never been buzzed. I never smoked. Don't do drugs. Although I do have a sweet tooth, I will have cake and cookies here and there. But for the most part, I don't buy it. It's not in my house. And I think you just hit on something. What you said that your general regimen of eating is and what you don't eat, that is powerful. If people can
it's more of what I don't eat.
Right.
Not on a strict diet.
Right.
I eat pizza. I eat Chinese food.
Right.
I love steak and potatoes.
Right.
But I'm not going to eat junk.
Right.
And I haven't had a cavity in I don't know how many decades.
Wow.
I mean, physical fitness has helped me in every which way through my life, mentally, physically.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's just for soldiers and for cops.
Well, no, everybody.
Any job you have, even if you sit at a desk all day, might even be more important.
100%.
You got to get the blood stimulating. You got circulating through the body.
100%. And as I've gotten older, I said to myself, I don't really like gyms, but I made myself join a gym 2 years ago. I said, from now on, the gym, or it has to be part of my daily life. It has to be like taking a vitamin, because that's how important exercise is. And if I'm not in the gym, I'm playing tennis, I'm walking, I'm exercising. It is that important. It trumps. It's so powerful. And to your point, real quick too, I wanted to ask you just talk a little bit about the show you have out on. Is it on?
Well,
Prime?
I have a TV series. It's called Street Justice: The Bronx, and right now it's on Amazon, Apple, and Demand on if you have some TV services. But it's
Right.
on Amazon Prime. I have one season, 6 shows, and it's pretty good. I
Yeah.
say so myself.
Listen, I'll say, and the show, the book right here. I mean, Street Warrior. And just go back to this book. Like I said, it reads like fiction, and I've read a lot of similar books, but honestly, this is something that it's a page turner, and
Thank you very much,
it
Anthony.
really is. I'm like, this can't be true, but it is true. And
It's also in a hardcover, soft cover, audio, and Kindle.
yeah.
All available on Amazon.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And so, I think I know the question. I think I know the answer to this next question. Do you miss the job?
I always miss the job, and I'm out 41 years now, and I probably couldn't do the job today under the rules and circumstances.
Yeah.
We didn't have cameras, and like we said before, the attitudes, everything is so different today.
Yeah.
That I probably wouldn't be able to do the job because of. Not because I couldn't do it in the street.
No, I get you.
I probably couldn't do it under the circumstances of the rules and circumstances laid out today.
Right. Well, to your point too, like I know, like I said, a lot of cops. I used to be a teacher before I went into my business full time, and teachers, and I can tell you also as a former teacher, I think kind of what you're saying here is this, like, it's become more paperwork than anything. And so it's kind of sad because we're not, like, teachers now are more lawyers and doing secretarial work than they're actually teaching. And I think cops are the same way. I think it's like you're doing more paperwork. And I'm reading your book too, and you're talking about like how you had your little method to get in and out of courts and stuff.
Yeah, how to do that.
But you know what? Like, I'm reading the book and I'm like, geez, there was a ton of paperwork back then. Today must be insane. And so how does a cop do his or her job? Well, it's like
today I think they do it, all the paperwork. Well, they have computers. We never had computers.
Right.
And I think they have department cell phones in New York City.
Right.
They do their reporting over a phone. And in the precincts, I've been in precincts recently. I still go to precincts and stuff for events and memorials and just to say hello and stuff. And in the detectives, everywhere in the offices, even downstairs where the regular police are, and upstairs where the detectives, everything's computerized.
Right.
Everything's computerized.
And
they have their phones in the street. The department issued that they do everything on.
Right. Wow. So, yeah.
I mean, there's still a lot of reporting to do.
No, right.
Reporting, but it's done with technology.
Yeah, and it's amazing because you were a cop, like I said, back in the 70s, the nitty gritty 70s, and I mean, it really, like I said, as I'm reading the book, I'm like, man, this sounds, it's really. Yeah, anybody who knows New York City in the 70s, I mean, it was a rough time for the city. And you were in the thick of it. I was going to also say in closing, I had another question for you about policing. I was going to say is that, I mean, working out and exrecising, I guess it also helped you when you had to do hand-to-hand combat against these criminals, right? I mean, because I'm reading the book, and it's like, you're describing how you have to physically take down men who are 6'5", 240, just absolute huge beast of men. And I'm like, this is something I got of like David and Goliath, and there was no modern day type of communication. Like if you got into an altercation, the cavalry wasn't, like you're on your own for a little bit, it wasn't like today where there's cameras everywhere, like you were saying, and backup could be within seconds. Back then, it seems like you were duking it out for 4 rounds before anybody came to help you out.
Well, they came pretty fast.
Oh, they did? Good.
If you got the call for help.
Yeah.
I got to say one thing about the NYPD. I don't know how other departments are, but NYPD, they come in droves.
I was talking more about the technology.
What's that?
No, I was talking more about the technology in the 70s. So like you had...
Well, we had a radio. That was it, portable radio or a radio in the car.
Oh, so you would have a radio on your chest?
No, they didn't have that then. We had a portable in your hand.
Oh, I see.
But we didn't have them right in the beginning, not in 70, more like 71, 72.
Right.
And they didn't work that great.
Right. But that's what I'm saying.
In the car, there was a phone to Central.
Right. So if you
that worked pretty good.
Yeah. So in 1969, 1970, 1971, if you got into a brawl with somebody, it would be a little bit of a while before they come because you didn't have the modern technology.
That's right. But in NYPD, you worked in partners. So it's 2 of you. See, a lot of, when you get out of the cities, a lot of officers and troopers work by themselves.
Right.
And their help isn't too close.
Right.
Like in NYPD, there's like 35,000 cops.
Yeah.
But when you get out of the city or a trooper on the highway, they got to really handle themselves because they don't have help. They don't work in twos. Yeah. And the help is far away. Someone might have to drive 10, 20 miles.
Yeah. I used to date a woman who was a former New Jersey state trooper, and she was a tough person, and like you said, by herself out there and
by themselves.
Yeah, well, it's tough no matter what, whether you got a buddy or not. But in the city though, I mean, in New York City even today, it's a tough place to be. And so I'm not surprised you answered that you do miss the job. I mean, like I said, just reading the book, it's just the camaraderie and the brotherhood, and
it was tremendous back then.
Right.
It was tremendous.
And that's, I think, probably right. What you missed the most is that camaraderie, that fellowship, that brotherhood, that we're in this together. And I don't think there's very few other jobs where you're going to have that. I think police is one of them. Military is the other one.
Police and military.
Maybe nurses, possibly. Like working in life
in an operating room, maybe.
Right. You know what I mean? But
there's a team effort.
Correct. There's a team effort, and that's the vulcanization, that bond that you guys have. So and I think what I wanted to ask you too is what advice would you give somebody like two bits. What advice would you give somebody today that wants to look into getting into policing? They're a 17-year-old boy or girl. What advice would you say to them?
Stay out of the big cities.
Well.
I always tell everybody, stay in shape.
Yeah.
It's important for everything you do in your life. And like I said before, you only have one body. You should take care of it. You know?
Yeah. And I always say, God made our bodies Ferraris. Don't put fuel in the Ferrari. I always say that. But and then my other bit of a question was, and you kind of already hit it, but what advice would you give a young person that wants to, stay healthy throughout their life? And that would be, you said, exercise.
Well, routinely exercise. You can't do it haphazardly. It's got to become a routine. Like every day you wake up, you brush your teeth.
Yeah.
So you got to wake up, or some part of the day has to be, you have 24 hours. You can definitely find 1 hour to exercise.
100%.
On a minimum.
Yeah. No, and also in closing, did you have, or did you feel like you had when you were on the job? I know the answer to this question, but it's so important to have good friends around you for moral support. You had that when you were on the job?
Oh, absolutely. The cops I worked with were the best in the world.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, just going through these pages, man, it was you felt the camaraderie. You really
absolutely
made that very apparent, actually. And no man, no woman is an island without a team.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I couldn't beat up the whole Bronx by myself.
Yeah, let me tell you, man. Yeah. I mean, it was. Even when I'm reading, I'm like, oh, he's gonna lose this fight. I'm like, Freeman wins again. Oh, like, amazing. So, but no, thank you again for your service. Now, is there anything else before we wrap up that you want to add, Detective?
Well, I'd like to say to all police officers, past, present, and future, thank you for your service. Special thanks for the military, all our veterans, and thanks to you for having me on.
Thank you for making the time. And like I said, my honor, and just a great read. Ladies and gentlemen, the holidays are coming. Go and buy this book, gift it. Get a few out there. I promise you, this is a page turner, and no one's paying me to say it, but I promise you, you will not put this book down. So
thank you, Anthony.
No, Detective, thank you so much. And I'm going to sign us off. Thank you, everybody. And check back in, like and subscribe. Heading us out here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Thank you, Detective.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.